Association Championship Drag Racing. The 1986 Spring Nationals. Speeds in excess of 265 miles an hour. Covering the quarter-mile distance in less than 6 seconds. Drag racing from the NHRA. Welcome to Columbus, Ohio, a thriving metropolitan area of over 1 million people. As with so many communities throughout the Midwest, its growth was directly connected to an historical phenomenon known as the National Road. With construction beginning in 1813, this trail connected Cumberland, Maryland and Vandalia, Illinois, and served as the main thoroughfare by which what was then known as the West was settled. With the coming of the automobile, the National Road became U.S. Highway 40, but it still retained some of the notable features of its predecessor, such as the famous S Bridge near Zanesville, Ohio. Highway 40 served as the main east-west artery for over half a century, until it was displaced by the interstate system. But still, once a year, the National Trail jumps back into prominence as it becomes the focal point of the motorsports world. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and this is National Trail Raceway and the 22nd Annual NHRA Budweiser Spring Nationals. Over 600 cars from throughout the United States have come here to compete for the nearly $900,000 in prize money. Working with me today, as always, is my good friend and expert commentator, Steve Evans.
Well, David, if those pioneers could have harnessed the horsepower in this particular covered wagon, that trip from Cumberland to Vandalia wouldn't have taken nearly so long. Instead of 50 days at 12 miles a day, just about 2 hours at 260 miles per hour. This is the beautiful streamliner of Gary Ormsby that we've talked about before. But here at Columbus, it is finally reaching its full potential. The #1 qualifier at 5.45 seconds, and in round #1, Gary dispatched Texan Eddie Hill. But the big news in round #1 was the early departure of a superstar. Right, David?
Steve, the huge crowd on hand for this 22nd Annual Spring Nationals got the race of the weekend when the reigning Top Fuel world champion, Don Garlits, faced the newest star in championship drag racing, Dan Pastorini. Garlits, operating his Museum of Drag Racing in Ocala, Florida, has some 30 years' experience in Top Fuel racing, while Pastorini won the recent Southern Nationals, but has faced nothing but problems here at Columbus.
Yep, that's a truck. Dan Pastorini's new truck. And it has been an important player in this weekend's Pastorini saga. You see, last weekend, his old truck blew up in Seattle, and the truck doctor said the only thing worth saving was the generator. What to do without a truck, and you're in Seattle, Washington? Well, he called Kenworth, and they said, Dan, we're going to do you a favor. We'll sell you an 85 for not much more than a Volkswagen. He took him up on that, met a friendly truck driver to help him drive. Now, they left Seattle on Wednesday, didn't get here until late Friday night. Saturday morning, there was no pit space left except for what you see here. Immediately, the rig got stuck in the mud. They unloaded the race car in the mud, got it in the lanes, had one shot to qualify, and pulled it off. All in all, I think it's going to be a long time before the truckers start calling Dante king of the road.
Steve, that one qualifying attempt was enough. Pastorini got in the program in the #11 spot. As the two cars came to the starting line, we saw a classic example of old versus new, with Pastorini's car representing the more conventional and Garlits' new streamliner reflecting the new 270-mile-an-hour look. But when the green light came on, there was to be no 270-mile-an-hour run for Garlits today as he lost traction, which put Pastorini ahead to stay. Great reflexes at the start, great performance from the car, 5.69 seconds at a slowing 234 miles an hour. As we watch again, you can see Pastorini gain the advantage off the line and see the traction problems that plagued Garlits. While the world champion was trying to stop the tires from spinning, Pastorini was extending his lead until at the end of the quarter-mile track, he had more than a full car-length margin. For the beleaguered Pastorini, a satisfying win.
After what you have been through the past few days, this has got to feel very good.
I'll tell you what, I got a friend of mine that helps us out in this car, Larry Enderley. He's in the oil business, and you know how the oil business is right now.
Good.
He says the impossible takes 15 minutes longer, and that's exactly what we've done. We've just taken the time to do things right. The guys have done a great job preparing the car, and it shows. The results are there.
And you're a pressure player. You didn't even get here till yesterday morning.
I like those fourth downs.
569?
Not bad. Not bad. The car left real well. It shook a little bit, but everybody's having trouble with shake. We'll fix that in the clutch, and we'll be ready next time.
Okay.
Pastorini got a congratulatory hug from his wife Beverly while Steve caught up with Don Garlitz.
Just not enough racetrack?
I don't know. Herb said it struck the tires from where it sat. It's, I don't know.
I know we talked out on the racetrack when you were selecting lanes. Maybe the other lane?
Who knows? I don't think there was a lot of difference in the lanes. I think it was just a combination of the car and the conditions.
Well, the team that wins here today may be the most adept at their clutch. That's going to be a key element in this race.
Yeah, and they shouldn't have too much power. It should be a situation where maybe the power's down a little bit.
Sorry to see out so early.
Okay.
Garlitz out of competition at the end of the first round of racing. The 1986 Spring Nationals is being brought to you by Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. And by Ford. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Goodyear Eagles. You either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. In the pit area, longtime friends and competitors Don Garlitz and Connie Coletta. Enjoying a moment of relaxation. Garlitz obviously happier than he was a few minutes ago. With National Trail Raceway near Columbus, Ohio, we're ready for the second round of Top Fuel Eliminator. These kings of the sport with engines over 2,500 horsepower cover this quarter mile at over 260 miles an hour. Ray Stutz from California, doing the burnout to heat the tires to provide him some traction. Here's his competitor in the second round race. This is Jody Smart. As we have seen before, driving one of these cars is a very complex process. But when they come to National Trail, they find the track presents yet another challenge.
In this part of the country, this could be a freshly plowed field awaiting a second planting of soybeans. But it's not. It's the sand trap at the end of a rather short National Trail Raceway, and its purpose is to catch errant race cars. It's really more gravel than sand, varying in depth from about 6 inches to 3 feet. Now, just past the sand trap is a breakaway fence and then Refugee Road, which the local constabulary closed down anytime the hot stuff is running. And across the street is Herb White. Now, he's never had a visiting race car, but he must have had a premonition, because this year he moved his garden.
By Gary Phillips in a qualifying attempt in Funny Car Eliminator. Gary Phillips met the challenge of the sand trap and ended up in Herb White's front yard. Once again, the safety regulations of the National Hot Rod Association proved their worth as Gary Phillips emerged unhurt. As we watch again, Phillips approached the finish line, the engine exploding into a ball of flame, the fire continuing to burn, Phillips trying to maintain control of the vehicle as it crossed over into the other lane of the racetrack. The parachute deployed, but the car began to come around, the left rear tire exploding from the heat, the body melting into a mass of fiberglass. Incredibly, Phillips continued to steer the car, and as these graphic pictures captured by our Diamond B Sports cameraman Jeff Kelty proved, he entered the sand trap head-on and came to a slowing stop in Herb White's front yard. And by the way, Mr. White cooperates fully with the NHRA with respect to this circumstance. On the starting line, Top Fuel Eliminator, round number 2. In the lane nearest the camera is Ray Stutz. In round number 1, Stutz defeated Hank Endres. He is racing against Jody Smart. Driving for John Kerry, Smart defeated former world champion Gary Beck in the first round. It was this car, driven then by Bill Mullins, that you saw take the championship at the Spring Nationals just 1 year ago. Now, Jody Smart is in the cockpit. Ray Stutz, a Californian, racing here in Ohio in the near lane. Both cars approaching the starting line very gingerly. When they're set, it's a green light start, and Ray Stutz pulls to a big lead. But here comes Jody Smart. It's close at the finish, and it is Ray Stutz by half a car length. The crew very happy with the performance, but look, no parachute for Jody Smart. He's approaching that sand trap, trying to get the car slowed down, and the sand trap does its job. It goes just across the road and comes to a halt once again in Herb White's front yard. Looking in replay, you see Ray Stutz. He has got about a half a car length lead the last half of the racetrack. He holds on to that to the finish. But while the race was over, that's when the action really began for Jody Smart. He attempted to deploy the second parachute, but it failed to come out in time. Smart slid across the gravel, the car slowing drastically. Smart drove it into the fence, across the road, and into the field.
What goes through your mind? Keep it straight. Don't try to turn.
Yes, through the years we've seen what happens to people when they try to turn, and you really get into a lot of trouble there. So you got to go right into the pit, what it's made for, and it really works great.
Jody Smart obviously okay, the NHRA Safety Safari moving the car, and other than a little bent bodywork, I don't think it's hurt that bad.
Steve, a great driving job by Jody Smart, saving not only himself, but the race car for John Kerry. Here's Dan Pastorini. We saw him beat Don Garlitz in the first round in spite of all the problems that Pastorini's experiencing this weekend. In this race, he is against 24-year-old Darrell Gwynn. Gwynn, the youngest driver in competition this weekend in Top Fuel Eliminator. We saw him earlier this year win the Winter Nationals crown. Gwynn in the far lane, Pastorini in the near lane. Both these drivers have won a national event championship thus far this season. Another great start for Pastorini, but he smokes the tires. Here comes Gwynn. He can't catch him. Pastorini wins it. A great elapsed time, 5.60 seconds. Before we go to the next race in Top Fuel Eliminator, here's Steve with upset winner Ray Stutz.
I have followed Ray Stutz's career for a number of years, since the day he started driving, as a matter of fact, and I'm proud to say this is the furthest you've gone in NHRA National Event competition. A good day so far.
So far, we're doing real good. Our crew has just been fantastic. Everyone here, we don't get no one's on a payroll. We're just all here trying to make enough to go home on.
Well, a fireman from Pomona, California, it's a good thing they give you time off anyway to do this thing.
That's the only way I could do this.
That car is not by any means new.
No, it's 3 years old, but it doesn't really have that many runs on it, per se, as far as what everyone else has, but it is an excellent race car.
And that race car carried Ray Stutz to a big win over Jody Smart. Here is one of the high-tech race cars in Top Fuel racing, Joe Amato, racing against a longtime veteran, Gene Snow. It was back in 1974 that Gene Snow won the funny car title here. In the first round of Top Fuel racing, Snow defeated Dick LaHaye. Joe Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, took on Richard Holcomb, came out the winner in the first round. Amato with the new canopy and closing the cockpit. Another of the streamlining efforts that has begun to invade Top Fuel Eliminator racing. Based on first-round performances, Gene Snow's got to be considered the favorite. He was 2/100ths of a second quicker in his run. That gave him the lane choice, and he took the lane furthest from the camera. And it is Amato out in front. Amato builds the lead, continues to hold it, but the engine goes away. He holds on for the win. Joe Amato, 5.75 seconds. The engine going away is displayed in the speed at 207 miles an hour. So Joe Amato turns a performance disadvantage into a victory. It was a perfect start for both cars. They left the starting line at the exact same moment. Amato had a slight advantage. As you can see when they pass the Diamond V camera, Amato by just a wheel length is ahead of Gene Snow. Then the engine starts to go away. The trail of smoke indicating problems, a slight fire, but Amato by half a car length and a big victory.
Well, Joe, a victory will put you in the semis, but there's going to be a lot of work to do in your pit.
Well, Steve, we're lucky the car nosed over about 1,000 foot. And he was right there, but the motor just had enough momentum and it made it over the finish line ahead of his. But we got the parts. We can fix the car.
Joe Amato and his crew chief Tim Richard, lots of work staring him in the face before the semifinal round. But as the crowd looks on from atop the sponsor suite building here at National Trail, they see one of the true veterans in the sport, Connie Coletta, approaching the burnout area. There's a big puddle of water there. Coletta rolls through, wets his tires, and hits the throttle. The tires begin to spin and smoke. That means they're actually burning rubber, putting down a track of rubber on that starting line, providing great traction. And here, of all the pioneers that came to compete on this day at the National Trail Raceway, is the man that had the quickest little covered wagon of them all. This is Gary Ormsby. His Super Streamliner, recording an elapsed time of 5.45 seconds, came in the #1 qualifier. Last year, in a conventional car, Ormsby finished 5th in the world. 48-year-old veteran Connie Coletta, number 3 in the world last season, is lucky to be here at all today. In Top Fuel qualifying, Coletta exploded an engine. A huge fireball, parts coming off the car, Coletta struggling for control. The parachute comes out and helps to slow the car, along with a huge disc brakes. Coletta bringing the car to a safe stop. But the damage was extensive. As Coletta looked over what remained of his 2,500 horsepower engine, he found that damage was extremely severe. The supercharger gone, complete destruction of that engine. Coletta and his crew, headed by son Scott, worked diligently overnight, replaced the parts, Coletta defeating Chris Karamessinis in round number 1 to earn the right to face the low qualifier, Gary Ormsby, here in the second round of Top Fuel. And Ormsby smokes the tires. Coletta gains a slight advantage. Can he hold on to it? He does. It is Coletta by half a car length, and Gary Ormsby's Streamliner goes down to defeat as he smoked the tires off the starting line. Coletta with a 5.70 seconds, his speed 243 miles an hour, just enough to win the race, and that's what counts. As we watch again, you can watch in the far lane as the tires begin to spin and the smoke comes off of them for Gary Ormsby. Here in the near lane, it is Connie Coletta pulling ahead by nearly a car length at this point, but the fast-closing Streamliner almost pulls it out for Ormsby. Coletta is ahead by just inches at this point, continues to hold on, and wins it.
Well, that blower explosion in qualifying, that's a distant memory now.
Expensive one yet.
Connie Coletta goes to the semis. Who'd have thought it after his problems in qualifying?
Who would have thought it, Steve? And Coletta and his crew, hard workers that they are, earned their right to the semifinals where they'll race against upset-minded Dan Pastorini. Pastorini with the lane choice. The other pairing in the semifinal round finds the surprising Ray Stutz against Joe Amato, and Stutz has lane choice. We'll be coming right back for more action from the Spring Nationals. A huge crowd jammed into National Trail Raceway near Columbus, Ohio for the 22nd annual running of the NHRA Budweiser Spring Nationals, and in Joe Amato's pit area. Calm, cool, and collected would be the phrase to describe this group as they go about their assigned tasks in replacing the engine that gave Joe so much trouble in the previous round. In Dan Pastorini's pit area, it looks like he may have his troubles a bit better under control. The crew going about their chores very calmly as they are getting ready for the semifinal race against Connie Coletta. On the starting line, the funny cars have come to life, and it is the number 1 qualifier, Mark Oswald, in the Candies and Hughes Special. Oswald qualified at a 5.65 seconds, the quickest car here and the fastest in funny car racing at a speed of over 259 miles an hour. Oswald, in his march to the World Championship, won the Spring Nationals back in 1984. 84 was a good year for Billy Meyer. He won 3 events that season, but he has fallen on somewhat hard times since then, having yet to collect a victory. Mark Oswald from nearby Cincinnati, Ohio, has had his share of problems. He did not win a race throughout 1985, but has regained some of his consistency that carried into that 84 World Championship. Oswald in the far lane. It is Meyer in the near lane with the advantage off the starting line, but Oswald has had the speed all weekend and proves it once again. Some engine problems for Billy Meyer. Car owner Paul Candy is very pleased with the performance at over 253 miles an hour. Mark Oswald records a 5.79 second elapsed time. When you talk about technology, one name comes to the forefront in funny car racing, that of Kenny Bernstein. The reigning world champion, Bernstein, always on the leading edge of whatever development will make this funny car go down the racetrack quicker and faster than any other. He is racing against one of the longtime veteran car owners and engine builders, Roland Leong's vehicle, driven now by the latest in a long series of drivers, Johnny West. Formerly campaigning his own funny car out of the Phoenix, Arizona area, West joined the Leong team about a year ago. Kenny Bernstein and crew chief Dale Armstrong, a disappointing season thus far, are still the leaders in technology.
When you're looking for the latest in aerodynamics, all you have to do is stop by the pit of world funny car champion Kenny Bernstein. Now here is Dale Armstrong's newest device that he's learned through all the wind tunnel testing. These are called vortex generators. Now what happens here, as the air flows over and between these generators, it causes the air to swirl. And swirling air will follow a contour better than smooth air. So they'll get more downforce off of the rear deck and the rear spoiler. But even with all this continuing technology, Kenny has still struggled a bit this year. And we talked about that earlier. At what point do you feel you've got to get in that winner's circle to defend the world title?
Well, I think you've got to get in it right now this weekend at Columbus, Ohio, immediately. The race for the Winston Championship is very tight, as you know. 7 cars within 600 points. It doesn't take much to make up a lot of room. Luckily, no one's run away with it yet, so we're still in good shape. We just need to make a move.
Let's hope it all works today.
I hope so.
It was a runaway a year ago, though, for this man when he won 6 national event titles on the march to the World Championship. Johnny West is the man that is trying now to put a halt to Kenny Bernstein's efforts today at the Springnationals. These drivers encased in the fiberglass bodies are concentrating on the starting device known as the Christmas tree. And it's a great start for Bernstein as West was very late. And Bernstein a smooth run to the quarter mile. And crew chief Dale Armstrong says that's the way it should be done. The elapsed time, 5.67 seconds. His speed, 256 miles an hour for Kenny Bernstein, advancement to the semifinals. After a long, smoky burnout, John Force brings his Chevy Cavalier to a nice, slow stop as his competition fires the 2,500 horsepower nitro-burning engine that is encased in this fiberglass body. This is Brad Tuttle. Tuttle first burst onto the scene at the Winter Nationals when he qualified well in the funny car field. Then coming to this Spring Nationals event, he qualified in the number 7 position. Tuttle calls his car the Nitro Bandit, and here in round number 2 is facing some stiff competition against John Force. In round 1, Tuttle had a fairly easy go of it against Della Woods, but this time it might be a bit different, as John Force qualified in the number 3 position, defeating in round 1 Jerry Caminito. You'll find no racer as dedicated to winning as is John Force. Why? Because he has been runner-up 6 times. He is what is called the proverbial bridesmaid, and that could spell trouble for Brad Tuttle. You've got to know that John Force has had it with not winning a drag race. You can almost feel the intensity emanating from John Force in his car as he comes into the staging beams to race Brad Tuttle. In Tuttle red light, he was thinking about it, but for Force it's an easy go. He automatically advances into the semifinals as Brad Tuttle left the starting line too soon, thus disqualifying him from further competition, giving the win automatically to John Force. But Force could only run a 5.95 second elapsed time at only 229 miles an hour. That may cost him if lane choice becomes a factor. As we watch again, you see Brad Tuttle leave too soon, the red light glowing on the Christmas tree, the win automatically to John Force.
Well, John, I've heard you say a lot of times, all you need is a little luck. Well, you just got some with that red light.
Well, we had a little luck, and the car did fall off a little bit. But you're right, and I've heard you say this a lot of times. So we're going to go back and we're shoot it again. And if this thing don't win me a drag race, I'm going to start punching holes in this race car.
Well, Steve, maybe that's why they call him Brute Force. On the starting line, it is Tom McEwen and Paul Smith. They both have their emergency hatches open for 2 reasons. One, it lets the smoke out of the car after the burnout and brings some fresh air in for the drivers. The drivers are inside that cockpit, sitting behind that big engine. Paul Smith, driving for Fred Castronova, has yet to win a national championship event. Tom McEwen, the most recent winner of the Cajun Nationals down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We've talked about John Force trying to get a win. Here is a man that has been a star in championship drag racing for over 20 years, and it was just 1 week ago that he annexed his 3rd title. In that final round race at State Capitol Dragway, McEwen had an easy go as Billy Meyer smoked the tires off the starting line. Tom McEwen, the funny car champion at the Cajun Nationals. But now, he is taking his Corvette-bodied entry to the starting line against Paul Smith. Smith defeated local favorite Jim Head from Columbus, Ohio in the first round of competition, while Tom McEwen beat Ed McCulloch, who has already won 2 NHRA events in 1986. A good start for both cars. Smith beginning to smoke the tires slightly, and McEwen to the finish line and into the semifinals. 5.81 seconds, 249 miles an hour, the speed for McEwen. He'll be pleased with that, trying to step the car's performance up just a bit, because he's going to have to race Kenny Bernstein, with Bernstein getting lane choice in the semifinals. The other race finds the #1 qualifier, Mark Oswald, having lane choice against John Ford. Back in the pit area, there's lots of action going on in all the categories, but one of the nice things about drag racing is help your friends. And Don Garlitz, losing to Dan Pastorini in round #1, is now helping Connie Coletta in his effort in the semifinals. We'll be coming right back to Columbus, Ohio, and the Spring Nationals in just a moment. At the Budweiser Spring Nationals, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and we're in the pit area of Tom McEwen. Every crew member has his assigned task, and they go through this procedure between every round of competition. McEwen will be racing one of the best as he takes on Kenny Bernstein, who ended up in the #2 qualifying spot at the Spring Nationals, just 0.02 of a second behind Mark Oswald. But as impressive as all this is, it represents only a minute fraction of what can be found in the pits at any NHRA national event.
This incredible creation has been selected as the best appearing car of this year's Spring Nationals. It's Frank and Linda Maisie's Double B altered Trans Am. It competes in Competition Eliminator. Well, it's a Pro Stock style Trans Am body and chassis, but the engine is a supercharged early model Chrysler Hemi. Interesting car, and very typical of over 600 cars you'll find in the pit area at any NHRA national event. Now, due to our time constraints, we're only able to show you the pros, but when you come in person, you're welcome in the pit area up close to beautiful machines like this. You can take pictures, get autographs, have a heck of a lot of fun. Now, they're sportsman cars. They call them sportsman cars, but really in name only, as they compete for substantial cash awards and world championships just like the pros. And one of the most prestigious awards is the Sportsman Cup. That's a trophy awarded at the end of the year to the top sportsman racer, and it's stuffed with over $15,000 in cash. So about the best investment you can make when you come to one of these races is a pit pass. Get up close.
And Steve, in that competition eliminator category, Tim Cole, the winner. In top alcohol funny car, Pat Austin. Lee Young won the top alcohol dragster title. In super gas, Iggy Bachesco, the winner. Super stock raced over, stock Mark Wolf, and of course all those categories in competition for that Quaker State Sportsman's Cup. Back on the starting line, here's the man that's been the spoiler in Top Fuel racing thus far, Dan Pastorini. Defeated Don Garlitz round #1, defeated the rising new star, Darrell Gwynn, winner of the Winter Nationals in round 2, but now has got to face Connie Coletta. He and his son Scott, who's checking over the engine in that car, along with help from friends like Don Garlitz, have tried to overcome the blow that came when they exploded that engine in qualifying. They gave up lane choice to Pastorini, who was 1/10 of a second quicker in the previous round. Pastorini and Coletta, both cars now staged. And Coletta leads at the flash of green. The smoke off the tires for Pastorini. He's got traction problems, but Coletta puts it all together in a brilliant run. 5.61 seconds, his speed over 253 miles an hour, and Connie Coletta moves into the finals. Pastorini, his day is over. We watch the start once again, and it is Coletta in the far lane. You see the car move just an instant before Pastorini, but then the tires up in smoke for Dan Pastorini. He knows his day is over, but he still tries to catch the fleeing Connie Coletta.
Who would you rather race in the final, Stutz or Amato?
I love to race Joe. Tim Richards is a good old man. I just love to beat him.
We'll look forward to it if it happens.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go back to the starting line.
Steve, Connie Coletta is obviously enjoying his day at the Spring Nationals. As Dan Pastorini, what more can we say about this man? He comes over to congratulate the winner, Connie Coletta. Not a single person has moved out of the grandstand because they know the next race could be a close one. It is Ray Stutz, the surprising Ray Stutz, making it to the semifinals against Joe Amato. We heard Coletta say he'd love to run Joe Amato, but Ray Stutz The California Rattler car wants to put a stop to that. Why does he call it the Rattler? Because as a hobby, this fireman raises snakes. In fact, he uses some of the proceeds from that snake farm to help finance this independent operation. Against one of the most heavily financed teams in the sport, that of Joe Amato, Ray Stutz is going to have to coil every bit of his striking power. Amato with the nose piece, designed to put the downforce on the front wheel so he can steer this monster. And Stutz smokes the tires. Amato streaks for the finish line. He's holding it all the way through, trying for lane choice. Did he get it? Yes, he did. By 100th of a second, 5.60 seconds, 253 miles an hour. So as we go into the final round of Top Fuel Eliminator, Joe Amato has lane choice over Connie Coletta. Both of these drivers reached the finals by virtue of their opponents smoking the tires. And the clutch settings, as we heard Don Garlits say earlier, can be all important on this racetrack. And that's what this man, Mark Oswald, is so seriously concentrating on. The clutch adjustment to the Candies and Hughes funny car getting ready for the semifinal round. Down at the finish line, it's a very happy Joe Amato receiving a hug from his wife, Jerry, after his big win over Ray Stutz. The loser Stutz in to offer his good wishes to Joe Amato. At the Spring Nationals and National Trail Raceway, if peaceful could be a description of a pit area, that's the way you'd have to describe John Force's operation. Crew Chief Austin Coyle directing his charges in preparing John Force's car for the semifinal race. But first, it is Pro Stock Eliminator time, and this is the factory hot rod competition. A Pontiac Trans Am Firebird, driven by Butch Leal from the Columbus, Ohio area, will be going against a Chevrolet Camaro from California, owned by Bill Orndorff and driven by Jerry Ekman. Ekman reaching the semifinals, the furthest in national event competition ever. Butch Leal won his first event in 1985, taking home the Southern Nationals title. These cars are powered by 500 cubic inch engines. They run on racing gasoline with two 4-barrel carburetors. They are very exotic race cars. Ekman gets a very slight advantage, but quickly the power of the Pontiac proves out for Leal, and he pulls out a one-car length victory as car owner Gil Kirk very happy with this win. 7.63 second elapsed time. His speed 182 miles an hour, and that puts Leal into the finals. Jerry Ekman in the far lane gets just a very, very slight advantage at the start, and that's most unusual as Butch Leal is noted for his starting line reflexes. But Leal and his Pontiac has pulled out to a very slight advantage at this point. He continues to extend it inch by inch, foot by foot, until at the finish line, it is a one-car length margin of victory for Butch Leal. Our final pair in the semifinals find a Chevrolet against an Oldsmobile. The car in the near lane is driven by Joe Lapone Jr. Joe won his first NHRA national event, the last race of last year, the World Finals. He is racing against Warren Johnson from Duluth, Georgia. Johnson has a 2-race win streak going. First, he won the Southern Nationals. Then, just a week ago, he defeated Butch Leal to take the Cajun Nationals title. Lapone, driving a Chevy Camaro, has for his crew chief one of the most innovative engine builders of all time, Bill Grumpy Jenkins, who is looking intently at the rear of the vehicle as Lapone comes into the staging beam. And with the front wheels off the ground, Warren Johnson has got a very slight advantage. Joe Lapone trying to hang on. But at the finish line, it is Warren Johnson into the finals for the third week in a row. Johnson 7.61 seconds. His speed 183 miles an hour. Lapone was close at 184, but this sets up a rematch of last weekend. Warren Johnson against Butch Leal. Meantime, back in the Top Fuel pit area, good friend Don Garlits on hand once again to help Connie Coletta get his mount readied for the match against Joe Amato. The crew looking over the engine, making the final preparations. A lot of work goes into these vehicles between every round of racing as that engine comes down to the bare block, every part checked and replaced. They have completed that work on the Candies and Hughes Special, and Mark Oswald, the 1984 world champion, is ready to go against the man that has been runner-up 6 times in national event competition, John Force. But to get into his 7th final round appearance, Force has got to get by Mark Oswald, who seems to have regained some consistency. Oswald has about a car length lead. He holds on to it. The parachutes come out, and Oswald 255 miles an hour. Force gave it a valiant effort, topping 253, but it was only a car length behind to keep him out of his 7th final round appearance. Here's the man that has had the quicker elapsed times of elimination throughout the day. That's Kenny Bernstein. He will be racing Tom McEwen to earn the right to match up against Mark Oswald.
Well, for Mark Oswald, the Candies and Hughes team, another strong mid-570s elapsed time. Just what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I hope it's going to be good enough. We have to see what Bernstein does here. Whoever wins this race here, how they run will determine what we do.
It'll determine what lane you're going to be in, too.
Exactly.
A lot of drivers are complaining a little bit of shake and blurred vision. How about your car?
That was the first time it shook, and it wasn't really that bad,
How bad does it blur your vision, though, when it gets into that condition?
Oh, you can't even see where you're going. The only thing you can do is let off the throttle if it does it too long.
Just driving on instinct.
Yeah, that's basically what you have to do.
Okay, let's go back to the starting line and see who Mark Oswald will race in the final round. It's either going to be Tom McEwen or Kenny Bernstein.
Steve, Kenny Bernstein is the defending champion at the Spring Nationals. Dale Armstrong, his crew chief, checking the car over. Starter Buster Couch pointing at something. It's the emergency hatch. Dale Armstrong puts it back down. The car's now staged. And it is Bernstein out first. Bernstein with a big lead. He continues to extend it and wins it by a sizable margin. Going into the finals against Mark Oswald, Kenny Bernstein records a quicker elapsed time. He will have the lane choice. Back in Butch Leal's pit area, it is a tire change taking place. The huge tires that are used to get the traction to propel these cars over 180 miles an hour being changed on Butch Leal's Pontiac before the final round appearance against Warren Johnson and his Oldsmobile. In funny car racing, 2 cars remain. The 1984 world champion Mark Oswald at the wheel of the Candies and Hughes car, and Kenny Bernstein, the defending Spring Nationals champ and reigning world champ.
Well, you couldn't ask any more out of a race car or a driver than that performance by Kenny Bernstein, a 572. Kenny, we'll give you lane choice.
Well, that's good. It shook real hard and knocked the tire loose again, but that's the same thing it's been doing all day in the right lane. But consistency, as you know, is what wins these things, and Dale and the guys have just done super today and kept it in that area. I hope I didn't hold McEwen up a little. We went through a little different procedure up there than normal, but I hope not.
I don't think you did. Sure. Congratulations, going into the finals.
Thank you. About time.
Final competition coming up in just a moment at the Spring Nationals. Back at the Budweiser Spring Nationals near Columbus, Ohio, the crew on Joe Amato's top fuel car hard at work getting that racing engine ready for the final round appearance against Connie Coletta. Consider that these crews do between rounds a job that would take a couple of weeks on your passenger car. It's absolutely incredible. On the starting line, the final round of Pro Stock Eliminator. The Pontiac of Butch Leal from the Columbus, Ohio area against the Georgia-based Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. These cars are very exotic racing vehicles. They may look a great deal like the cars that you drive on the street, but in fact they are the most sophisticated race cars in all of championship drag racing. A rematch between Leal and Johnson. 1 week ago, they met on the starting line at State Capitol Dragway in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The race was decided at the starting line. As the tree was activated, Butch Leal left just a hair too soon, and that big red light was standing on the Christmas tree, indicating the disqualification for Butch Leal. Now it is the Spring Nationals. This is Columbus, Ohio. Completely new day, completely new race. Warren Johnson has the performance advantage. He qualified best. He's got the lane choice by virtue of the better elapsed time in the previous round. Leal stages his car. And it's a red light start for Warren Johnson. Butch Leal automatically takes home the Spring Nationals championship as Warren Johnson leaves the starting line too soon. The pressures are over as Butch Leal has won this race. The crew is overjoyed with this victory. Butch Leal, 7.61 seconds. His speed over 182 miles an hour. But back at the starting line, the sound you hear is that of nitromethane power. This is the defending champion, Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein in the the semifinals was 0.02 of a second quicker than his competition, Mark Oswald, at the wheel of the Candies and Hughes Special. While these two drivers get set to determine who will be the funny car champion, let's go to the far end and meet our Pro Stock winner.
Well, here is one happy driver, Butch Leal. A little role reversal. He red-lighted this time.
Well, we're pretty good competitors, you know, and this, Steve, I don't know hardly what to say. He returned the favor, I would say, and it's about time we got in the winner's circle for everybody. We're here at hometown, and this Castro Nationwide car did it, and all the guys at the shop deserve all the credit. I'm just in here driving, that's all.
The last two world champions are approaching the staging beams. Mark Oswald, 1984. Kenny Bernstein, 1985. They've both had problems. It's been since the World Finals in '84 that Mark Oswald was even in the final round of any funny car competition. He seems to have regained his consistency, but so has Kenny Bernstein. Oswald leads the starting line first, but Bernstein pulls ahead. Bernstein's got the lead, but here comes Mark Oswald, and by just a few feet, Mark Oswald is the champion of Funny Car Eliminator. That could be considered an upset. The lane choice was to Kenny Bernstein. The performance edge was to Bernstein, but in the finals, Mark Oswald proved to be best. As we watch again, you can see it was a great start for both cars. They leave almost simultaneously. The advantage on the clock goes to Oswald, but the advantage in power goes to Kenny Bernstein. Midway through the race, he has got a lead. He continues to hold that lead until the racetrack narrows down to the final few feet, and then Mark Oswald, in a matter of inches, steals victory.
There's a chance that the man under that helmet, Mark Oswald, doesn't even know who won that race. I can tell you, you did.
Thank you. I couldn't tell, I'll tell you that. It's plenty close. I came around him in the last little bit.
You had to have passed him right in the lights.
Yeah, it just was right there. His car looked like it nosed over. He was out ahead of me just a little bit.
Well, you outpowered him, just outmuscled him.
Really? How quick did he run?
Well, you ran a 576, he ran in the 580s.
Yeah, made it anyway, enough.
Well, you saw him all the way down the racetrack then.
Oh, yeah, that was a hell of a drag race. You can't ask for any better than those.
Now, let's see, it's been since, what, autumn of '84 that you won one of these things? Good job.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a long time for the old Milwaukee Pontiac, but we're finally back.
Okay. Indeed they are. Spring Nationals champion, Mark Oswald, car owner, Paul Candies.
Steve, like every great driver in all forms of motorsport, Mark Oswald making the rounds of the crew, congratulating them, thanking them for their efforts. Mark himself getting a congratulations from wife Janie as he becomes the funny car champion at the Spring Nationals. It all boils down to two cars remaining at the Budweiser Spring Nationals. This is the final for Top Fuel Eliminator. Two veterans, former world champion Joe Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, to go against 48-year-old Connie Coletta from Ypsilanti, Michigan. It was 19 years ago that Coletta won his first ever NHRA title way back in 1967 when he won the Winter Nationals crown. But it was a long dry spell to the next one, some 15 years until Connie Coletta took his second championship victory in 1982. For Joe Amato, 1984, his best year ever. He won the World Championship. 85 slowed down a bit. The Winter Nationals his only title, and he may be having some problems. There is tape all over the top of the motor on Joe Amato's race car. Amato and crew chief Tim Richards exchanging nods as Amato is encased inside of the canopy that covers the driver's compartment. Amato in the far lane while Coletta getting his tires wiped down to provide the best traction here in the near lane. Both of these cars have been plagued with mechanical problems throughout this event, leading back to Coletta's blower explosion in qualifying. Joe Amato losing an engine in eliminations. Anything could happen in this final. And it is a single for Connie Coletta as Joe Amato never leaves the starting line. Coletta wins the Top Fuel title. The parachute late coming out. There's no chute. It finally deploys. Can he get it stopped in time? He approaches the sand trap with the brakes on full, and Connie Coletta just inches into the sand trap. But he wins the Spring Nationals title while Joe Amato never left the starting line. Amato climbing out of his car had some problems. Our spotter tells us that it was an oil pressure problem for Joe Amato, forcing him to shut the engine off on the starting line, giving the win automatically to Connie Coletta.
Well, you know, the race isn't over in this business until you get them stopped, and Connie, you stop with the front wheels in the sand. But who cares at this point? Congratulations.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
An oil pressure problem apparently for Amato. The race was really over before it started.
I didn't even know that. No, I didn't even look over there, and we staged, and I stepped on it and went for it.
And then you think, oh no, because you knew the parachute hadn't come out.
Well, we'd had some troubles with the mechanism underneath it, and I think the wire broke. They kinked it, putting it back in, and I knew we had the second chute, so I was looking for it.
Boy, and the motor clean and dry after all of those problems in qualifying. Who'd have thought?
Who knows about this game? It'll make you humble sometimes.
Indeed it will. Your first win this season, you had 2 last year. Still got a good shot at that world title.
That can all happen. It takes the end of the year you start really finding out where it's at.
Johnny Coletta, he's won it all here at the Spring Nationals in Top Fuel Eliminator. And here comes the crew. And, of course, his son, Scott.
Steve, that whole crew has put in a tremendous amount of effort to reach this point, headed by son Scott Coletta. Our congratulations to all the champions at this Spring Nationals event. We hope you've enjoyed all of the racing, one of the best races we've had the privilege of seeing. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan, saying so long from Columbus. The executive producer of Diamond P Sports is Harvey M. Pallage. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. The 1986 Spring Nationals have been brought to you by Goodyear Eagle High Performance Radial Tires. You either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. And by Motorcraft, quality products for all makes of cars and trucks. Motorcraft exceeds the need. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by Quaker State. Quaker State Motor Oil meets all new car and truck requirements and your driving needs. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. Quaker State. And by the Duquesne South Fork Party Grill, offering innovative features that make Duquesne gas grills the choice of discriminating outdoor chefs when you want nothing but the best.